What happens when a desperate lie to escape your past traps you in the arms of the city's most dangerous man? Lena Hart thought one fake kiss would save her from humiliation. She didn't know the stranger's lips she claimed were attached to a man who controlled half the city's shadows. Adrian Voss doesn't do favors. He collects debts. And now she owes him one. Stick around to see how far this story goes. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see where you're watching from. The champagne was too expensive, the dresses too perfect, and Lena Hart was drowning. She stood near the marble column at the edge of the grand ballroom, clutching a glass of sparkling water she'd been nursing for 40 minutes. Around her, alumni mingled in clusters of easy laughter and designer clothes, their conversations peppered with mentions of summer homes in the Hamptons and gallery openings in Soho. The university's annual gala was supposed to celebrate achievement. For Lena, it felt more like a showcase of everything she'd never have. Her dress was borrowed, the shoes pinched, and her scholarship, the thing that had gotten her through 4 brutal years, felt like a scarlet letter tonight. "Another year, another reminder we don't belong," muttered a voice beside her. Lena glanced over. Maya Chen, her former roommate and current lifeline, appeared with 2 champagne flutes. She pressed one into Lena's hand. "I told you, I'm not drinking," Lena said. "And I told you that suffering through this sober is masochism." Maya clinked their glasses together anyway. "Drink, smile, pretend we're having the time of our lives." Lena managed a weak smile. Maya looked stunning in emerald silk. Her confidence, a armor Lena had never quite mastered. They'd both been scholarship kids, but Maya wore it differently, like a badge of honor instead of shame. "How long do we have to stay?" Lena asked. "Another hour minimum. Dean Patterson specifically asked if you'd be here. Something about your thesis on community-driven literacy programs." Lena's stomach tightened. Recognition should have felt good. Instead, it felt like exposure. She'd spent 4 years trying to be invisible, to slide through unnoticed. Being singled out made her skin crawl. "I hate these things," she muttered. "I know, but you're here, you look beautiful," and Maya's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing at something across the room. "Oh no." Lena didn't need to ask. She felt it, that prickling awareness that came before disaster. She turned, already knowing what she'd see. Damien Cross stood near the bar, impeccable in a tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than Lena's rent for 6 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his smile smooth as he spoke to a woman in diamonds. He looked exactly like what he was: old money, easy charm, and a ruthless streak hidden beneath expensive cologne. Her ex-boyfriend. The man who'd almost destroyed her. "Breathe," Maya whispered. "He hasn't seen you." But even as she said it, Damien's gaze swept the room. Lena turned away fast, her heart hammering. She'd avoided him for 8 months. 8 months since she'd finally found the courage to end things, to walk away from his controlling grip and gaslighting smile. "We should go," Lena said. "We're not running from that asshole." Maya, "No. You earned your place here just as much as he did. More, actually, since you didn't have Daddy's donations greasing the wheels." Lena appreciated the loyalty, but logic didn't slow her pulse. Damien had a way of making her feel small, of twisting words until she questioned her own memory. The last time they'd spoken, he'd cornered her outside the library, his voice soft and venomous. "You'll regret leaving me, Lena. No one walks away from me." She'd changed her number after that, switched her usual coffee shop, started taking different routes across campus. "Lena Hart?" She froze. But the voice wasn't Damien's. It was smooth, professional, unfamiliar. She turned to find a woman in a sleek black dress, clipboard in hand. "Yes?" "Dean Patterson would like a word. If you have a moment?" Relief and dread mixed in equal measure. "Of course." Maya squeezed her arm. "I'll be right here." Lena followed the woman through the crowd, trying to ignore the weight of eyes on her borrowed dress. The dean stood near the silent auction tables, surrounded by a small group of distinguished-looking donors. He smiled when he saw her. "Ah, Ms. Hart. Gentlemen, this is one of our most promising recent graduates." The introductions blurred. Names she wouldn't remember, firm handshakes, polite questions about her plans. Lena fell into the practiced rhythm of these conversations. Humble but not self-deprecating, ambitious but not presumptuous. She'd learned the dance. One of the men, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, asked about her thesis. "Community literacy programs in underserved neighborhoods," she explained. Specifically, how bookstores and cafes can serve as cultural anchors. Interesting. And what are your plans post-graduation? This was the question that always gutted her. I'm exploring opportunities, she said carefully, which was code for I'm working 2 jobs and can barely make rent, let alone pursue my actual dreams. She's being modest, Dean Patterson interjected. Lena has a comprehensive business plan for a bookstore cafe that could really transform. Lena! The voice cut through the conversation like a blade. She didn't need to turn around. She knew. Damien approached with that easy confidence, his smile bright and entirely false. I thought that was you. You look amazing. The donors watched with polite curiosity. Dean Patterson's expression showed mild confusion, and Lena felt the room tilt. Damien? Her voice came out steady. Small miracle. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. He stepped closer, proprietary. We should catch up. I'm actually in the middle of, I'm sure the dean won't mind if I steal you for a moment. Damien's hand found the small of her back. We have so much to talk about. Every instinct screamed to pull away. But they had an audience, and Damien knew it. He'd always been good at playing the charming boyfriend in public, saving his cruelty for private moments. Actually, she started. I insist. His fingers pressed harder against her spine. It'll just take a minute. The dean smiled, oblivious. Of course, we can continue this later, Ms. Hart. Lena felt herself being guided away, Damien's hand a brand through the thin fabric of her dress. Her mind raced. She could make a scene, but that would draw more attention. She could go along and then slip away, but Damien would follow. He always followed. They moved toward the less crowded edge of the ballroom, near the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Lena's breathing quickened. You've been avoiding me, Damien said quietly. His public smile never wavered. We broke up. That's generally what people do. We had a disagreement. That's different. You tried to control every aspect of my life. That's not a disagreement. His jaw tightened. I was trying to help you. You're so talented, Lena, but you don't see your potential. You settle. The old script. The one that had worked on her for too long. I need to get back. To what? Your minimum wage jobs? Your sad little apartment? His voice dropped lower, intimate and cutting. I saw your application for that downtown space. The bookstore dream. It was rejected, wasn't it? Her stomach dropped. How did you... I know people, and I could help you, if you'd stop being so stubborn. His hand moved to her wrist. We were good together. Let go of me. People are watching, Lena. Don't make a scene. Panic flared, bright and hot. He was right. They were on the edge of the crowd, but still visible, and Damien looked like the concerned ex-boyfriend, while she probably looked unstable. Her eyes darted around, searching for Maya, for anyone. That's when she saw him. A man stood alone near the bar, about 20 feet away. He wasn't mingling, wasn't drinking, just watching the room with an intensity that made him stand out despite his stillness. Dark suit, darker eyes, and an expression that suggested he missed nothing. There was something about the way he held himself, a coiled energy that spoke of power held carefully in check. Their eyes met. Lena didn't think. Thinking was what got you trapped in conversations with men like Damien, who used logic as a weapon. She acted. She yanked her wrist free and crossed the distance to the stranger in 5 quick steps. His eyes widened slightly, the first crack in his composure. I'm so sorry, she breathed. Please just... Then she kissed him. For a heartbeat, he went absolutely still. Lena's mind screamed that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she'd just assaulted a stranger at a university gala, that security would be called and her humiliation would be complete. But then his hand came up to her waist, steady and sure, and he kissed her back. It wasn't tentative, it wasn't questioning, it was thorough and claiming and so completely unexpected that Lena forgot to breathe. His other hand cupped the back of her neck, tilting her head to deepen the kiss, and heat bloomed through her chest. When he pulled back, his dark eyes searched hers. Interesting greeting. His voice was low, controlled, with an edge of amusement that somehow made it more dangerous. Lena's explanation died when she saw Damien approaching, his expression thunderous. The stranger saw him too. His hand remained on her waist, protective and possessive in a way that should have alarmed her but instead felt like safety. Problem? The stranger asked. He wasn't looking at Lena. His gaze locked on Damien with the kind of focus that made the air feel thin. Damien stopped short. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe calculation. I don't think we've met. No. The stranger didn't offer his hand. We haven't. Damien Cross. He extended his hand anyway, forcing the issue. And you are? A pause, weighted and deliberate. Adrian Voss. Lena felt Damien's reaction in the way he stiffened. The name clearly meant something to him, though she had no idea what. Mr. Voss? Damien's smile had become fixed. I didn't realize you'd be here tonight. Last-minute addition. Adrian's hand moved from Lena's waist to her hand, his fingers threading through hers with casual intimacy. The university's president invited me personally. Of course. Damien's eyes cut to Lena. I wasn't aware you two were acquainted. We weren't, Lena said, finding her voice. Until recently. Adrian glanced at her, and she saw the ghost of approval in his expression. He was letting her take the lead, she realized, playing along with whatever game she'd started. Lena and I have been keeping things quiet, Adrian said smoothly. You understand. Privacy. The lie hung in the air, fragile and absurd. Lena waited for Damien to call it out, to laugh in their faces. Instead, he stepped back. Of course, I didn't mean to intrude. His smile was sharp as glass. Lena, it was good seeing you. Mr. Voss, enjoy your evening. He walked away without another word. Lena stared after him, her mind struggling to catch up. Damien never backed down. Never. He'd spent 8 months trying to convince her they belonged together, and now he just left? You can let go now, Adrian said quietly. She looked down. Her hand was crushing his, her knuckles white. She released him immediately. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have grabbed a stranger and kissed him without permission? A hint of amusement colored his tone. No, probably not the best strategy. I panicked. He wouldn't leave me alone, and I just... She pressed her hands to her face. God, I'm mortified. Don't be. It was effective. She lowered her hands. Adrian was watching her with that same intense focus, but there was something else there now, curiosity maybe. Why did he leave? She asked. Damien doesn't give up that easily. Some people recognize when they're outmatched. Meaning what? Adrian tilted his head slightly. Meaning your ex is smart enough to know when to walk away. There was something in the way he said it, a quiet certainty that suggested he was used to people walking away. Lena studied him more carefully. Late 30s, maybe? Attractive in a severe way, with dark hair pushed back from a face that was all sharp angles and harder edges. The suit was impeccable but understated, expensive without being showy. Who are you? She asked. I told you. Adrian Voss. That's a name, not an answer. His mouth curved slightly. Fair point. What do you want to know? Why you're here. Why Damien recognized your name. Why you played along with a complete stranger's insane scheme. That's 3 questions. Pick your favorite. He considered this, his gaze never leaving hers. It should have been uncomfortable. She was used to men who looked through her or past her, not directly at her like she was a puzzle worth solving. I'm here because the university president is expanding the business school and wanted my input, Adrian said finally. Your ex recognized my name because I have a reputation in certain circles, and I played along because... He paused. Because you look terrified, and I don't like bullies. Simple. Direct. And somehow, Lena believed him. Thank you, she said, for not making it weird. You kissed me without warning at a formal event. It was already weird. A startled laugh escaped her. Fair, but effective, he added. Like I said. They stood there, the party swirling around them, and Lena realized she was still standing too close to him. She stepped back, creating appropriate distance. I should let you get back to whatever you were doing before I attacked you. Observing. Observing what? People. How they interact. Who holds power in a room and who pretends to. His eyes swept the ballroom. It's informative. Sounds lonely. His attention snapped back to her, sharp. Does it? She'd surprised him, she realized. Good, he'd surprised her too. Maybe that's just me projecting, Lena said. I hate these events, all this performance. Then why come? Same reason you did, probably. Obligation. Adrian's expression shifted, something like recognition passing over his features. What's your name? Your real name, since we've skipped several steps of traditional introduction. Lena Hart. Lena. He tested the sound of it. The graduate student with the bookstore dreams. She blinked. You heard that? I hear most things. He gestured vaguely toward where she'd been standing with the dean. Community literacy programs, cultural anchors, ambitious. Or naive. They're not mutually exclusive. Before Lena could respond, Maya appeared at her elbow, eyes wide. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. She stopped short, taking in Adrian. Oh, hi. Maya Chen, Adrian Voss, Lena said quickly. Adrian, this is my best friend. Maya's eyes went wider. Voss, as in Voss Industries? Adrian inclined his head slightly. Holy shit, Maya breathed. Then, to Lena. Do you know who this is? Someone with a reputation in certain circles, apparently. He owns half the commercial real estate in the city. Voss Industries is... Maya caught herself, suddenly aware she might be being rude. Sorry, I'm a finance major. I get excited. Former finance major, Lena corrected. Current financial analyst. Same difference. Maya was still staring at Adrian like he was a particularly interesting specimen. What are you doing talking to us? No offense. She kissed me, Adrian said simply. I'm investigating why. Maya's head swiveled to Lena. You what? It's a long story. Apparently a short one, actually, Adrian said. About 30 seconds, start to finish. Lena felt heat crawl up her neck. Can we not? Not what? Discuss the fact that you kissed a stranger to escape your ex-boyfriend? Adrian's tone was mild, but his eyes held amusement. That seems like relevant context. Oh my God, Maya muttered. Damien was here? He left, Lena said quickly. It's fine. Because she claimed to be dating me, Adrian added, which was creative. Maya looked between them, her expression cycling through confusion, horror, and finally landing on something like delight. This is the best thing that's happened all night. I'm so glad my humiliation is entertaining, Lena said. Are you kidding? This is amazing. You kissed Adrian Voss. Half the women in this room would kill for that opportunity. Adrian's expression remained neutral, but Lena thought she saw a flash of discomfort. I should go, Lena said abruptly. I've caused enough chaos for one evening. She turned to leave, but Adrian's voice stopped her. Will he bother you again? She looked back. What? Your ex. Will he bother you again? The question was casual, but there was something beneath it, an edge that suggested the answer mattered. I don't know, Lena admitted. Probably not tonight. Maybe not at all, since he thinks... She gestured vaguely between them. That you're with me. Right. Which, obviously, I'm not. So when he realizes that, he'll probably... She stopped, the implications catching up with her. Oh God, he's going to realize it was a lie, and then he'll be even worse. Adrian was quiet for a moment, then, not necessarily. What do you mean? I mean, he recognized my name, which suggests he knows enough about me to take the relationship seriously. Adrian's gaze held hers. If we maintain the appearance for a while, he'll move on, find someone else to bother. Lena stared at him. You can't be serious. Why not? Because we're strangers. Because it's insane. Because you have a better plan? His tone wasn't mocking, just genuinely curious. She didn't, that was the problem. Maya cleared her throat. I hate to point this out, but he has a point. Damien's like a dog with a bone. He won't stop unless he thinks there's no chance. And if he thinks you're dating someone like Adrian, she shrugged. That's a pretty clear message. This is crazy, Lena said. Most effective things are, Adrian replied. Look, I'm not suggesting anything complicated. We're seen together a few times. Enough to be convincing. Then we quietly part ways and your ex has moved on to his next target. Why would you do that? What's in it for you? The question hung in the air. Adrian's expression shifted, becoming harder to read. Let's call it an interesting diversion, he said finally. My life is very structured, predictable. This, he gestured between them, is neither of those things. It wasn't a real answer, Lena knew, but there was something in the way he said it, a hint of weariness that felt honest. I don't even know you, she said weakly. Then you'll get to know me. If we're going to convince people we're dating, we should probably manage actual conversations. Maya was practically vibrating with suppressed energy. Lena, say yes. You're not helping. I'm absolutely helping. This solves your Damien problem, and you get to spend time with one of the city's most eligible bachelors. Where's the downside? The lying? The manipulation? The general insanity of the whole plan? Details, Maya said dismissively. Adrian pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I haven't agreed to anything, but you're going to. It wasn't arrogance exactly, more like certainty based on careful observation. Because you're practical, and this is the practical solution. So give me your number, and we'll figure out the details tomorrow. Lena looked at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. She looked around the ballroom, where Damien stood near the silent auction tables, watching them with barely concealed fury. She looked back at Adrian, whose dark eyes held something like challenge. She was going to regret this. She knew she was going to regret this. She rattled off her number. Adrian entered it, then sent her a text. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. There, he said. Now you have mine. This is insane, Lena repeated. You mentioned that. Adrian's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I'll pick you up tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Wear something comfortable. For what? Dinner. If we're dating, we should probably act like it. Before Lena could protest, he lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and unexpected that she forgot to breathe. His eyes held hers, dark and intense. Good night, Lena Hart. Then he was gone, moving through the crowd with the same quiet authority he'd had when standing still. Maya grabbed Lena's arm. Did that just happen? I think so. You just agreed to fake date Adrian Voss. I think so, Lena repeated, her mind still reeling. This is either the best decision you've ever made or the worst. Lena touched her knuckles where his lips had been, feeling the ghost of contact. Across the room, Damien was leaving, his expression thunderous. Yeah, she said quietly. That's what I'm afraid of. The night air hit her like a slap when she and Maya finally escaped the gala. Lena pulled her borrowed shawl tighter, her heels clicking against the marble steps of the university's event hall. I can't believe you kissed him, Maya said for the 5th time. I can't believe he kissed me back. I can't believe he asked you out. It's not really asking out if it's a strategic arrangement to fool my ex. Maya snorted. Keep telling yourself that. They reached the subway entrance, the warm air from below carrying the smell of metal and electricity. Saturday night crowds filled the platform, young couples heading to clubs, exhausted service workers heading home, tourists studying their maps with confused expressions. Are you really going to do this? Maya asked as they waited for the train. Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You could tell Damien to fuck off and deal with the consequences. Lena leaned against the tiled wall. What consequences? Him showing up at my work? Calling me at 3 a.m.? Spreading rumors that I'm unstable? She shook her head. I tried the direct approach, Maya. It didn't work. The train arrived, packed with bodies. They squeezed into a corner, holding the overhead rail as the car lurched forward. I just don't want you getting hurt, Maya said quietly, close enough to be heard over the noise. Guys like Adrian Voss, they're used to getting what they want. He doesn't want anything from me. It's mutually beneficial. Nothing's ever mutually beneficial with rich men. There's always a cost. Lena didn't answer. She stared at her reflection in the dark window, seeing a woman in a borrowed dress with smudged makeup and kiss-swollen lip. A woman who'd made a reckless decision and was now speeding toward consequences she couldn't predict. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting Maya's reminder to confirm their brunch plans. Instead, tomorrow, 6 p.m. I'll send a car. Adrian Maya read over her shoulder. He's sending a car. Apparently. Lena, he's sending a car. I heard you the first time. Do you understand what that means? Normal people don't send cars. They meet at restaurants. They take Ubers. Maybe he's just being practical. Or maybe he's the kind of man who's used to controlling every detail of his environment, including you. Lena pocketed her phone. You're being paranoid. I'm being realistic. You know nothing about this guy except that he's rich. He intimidates Damien, and he kisses like... Maya paused. How does he kiss? We're not discussing this. Oh my God, it was good, wasn't it? Maya. It was good, you're blushing. I'm not blushing. This train is just hot. Liar. Maya grinned. This is amazing. You're going on a date with someone who actually makes you blush. It's not a date, it's a strategic alliance. Keep telling yourself that, babe. They rode in comfortable silence for a few stops, the crowd thinning as they moved farther from downtown. Lena's apartment was in a neighborhood that magazines called Up and Coming, which was code for still affordable because the subway stop is sketchy. When they reached her street, Maya walked her to her building, a pre-war walk-up with questionable plumbing and neighbors who thought midnight was an appropriate time for drum practice. Text me tomorrow, Maya said, hugging her. Before and after. And if this Adrian guy turns out to be a creep, I have pepper spray and a brother who owes me a favor. Noted. I'm serious, Lena. Be careful. I will. But as Lena climbed the 4 flights to her studio apartment, exhaustion pulling at her bones, she wondered if careful was even an option anymore. She'd kissed a stranger to escape her ex, and that stranger had turned out to be someone powerful enough to make Damien Cross back down without a fight. Who was Adrian Voss, really? She pulled out her phone as she unlocked her apartment door, typing his name into Google. The results made her stomach drop. Adrian Voss, CEO of Voss Industries. Commercial real estate, private equity, venture capital, net worth estimated in the billions. Age 38, never married, rarely photographed. The articles described him as intensely private and ruthlessly effective. One business profile called him the man who owns the city's shadows. There were photos, formal events, ribbon cuttings, the occasional charity gala. In every one, his expression was controlled, revealing nothing. He looked like a man who'd perfected the art of being seen without being known. Lena set her phone down and stared at her tiny apartment. One room serving as bedroom, living room, and dining room. A kitchenette with 2 burners and a mini fridge. A bathroom the size of a closet. This was her life. Scraping by on barista wages and tutoring gigs, dreaming of a bookstore cafe she could never afford. And tomorrow, she was having dinner with a billionaire. She laughed, the sound sharp and slightly hysterical. This was going to be a disaster. The next morning arrived too quickly. Lena worked the early shift at Grounds and Pages, the coffee shop near campus where she'd been slinging lattes for 2 years. Her manager, Rita, was a perpetually exhausted single mom who'd given Lena extra shifts when she needed them and covered for her during finals week. You look like hell, Rita observed, sliding a cappuccino across the counter to a regular. Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special. Late night? Something like that. The morning rush kept Lena too busy to think. Espresso, steam milk, call-out orders, repeat. The rhythm was soothing in its predictability. She could lose herself in the mechanical precision of pulling perfect shots, creating microfoam, sketching designs in steamed milk. Around 11, the crowd thinned. Lena was wiping down the espresso machine when her phone buzzed. Adrian. Address? She stared at the message, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Part of her had hoped he'd forget, that last night would fade into the category of things that seemed like good ideas after midnight. She typed out her address, hit send before she could overthink it. The response came immediately, 6 p.m., casual dress. Rita appeared at her elbow. Who's got you smiling at your phone like that? Nobody. That's a somebody smile, spill. Lena hesitated. Rita was nosy but trustworthy, and she'd given Lena relationship advice during the Damien years, advice Lena should have taken sooner. I sort of have a date tonight. Sort of. It's complicated. Honey, they're always complicated. Is he cute? Lena thought about Adrian's severe features, his dark eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she was a puzzle worth solving. Intense. Intense can be good. Intense can also be collects weapons in his basement territory. Which is it? I'll let you know tomorrow. Text me when you get home, and I mean when you get home, not, oh, I decided to spend the night and forgot. I need to know you're safe. The genuine concern in Rita's voice made Lena's throat tight. This was what she had, Maya's fierce loyalty and Rita's maternal worry. Not family money or connections or anything that would impress people at university galas. I promise, she said. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She left at 3, giving herself enough time to go home, shower, and figure out what casual meant to a billionaire. Her apartment felt even smaller in daylight. She stood in front of her closet, really just a curtained alcove, and stared at her limited options. Most of her clothes were thrifted or sale rack finds. Nothing screamed, woman who dates men who send cars. Finally, she settled on dark jeans, a cream sweater, and the one good leather jacket Maya had convinced her to buy last year. Understated, but put together. Casual, but not sloppy. At exactly 5:55 p.m., her phone buzzed. Adrian. Downstairs. Lena grabbed her bag and headed down, her heart hammering. What if this was a mistake? What if he'd changed his mind? What if... She pushed through the building's front door and stopped. A sleek black car idled at the curb, so out of place in her neighborhood that a few people had stopped to stare. The driver's door opened and a man in a dark suit stepped out. Miss Hart? Yes? He opened the back door. Mr. Voss is waiting. Lena peered inside. Adrian sat in the back seat, looking as composed as he had last night, though he'd traded the tuxedo for dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look dangerous and expensive. She slid into the car, hyper-aware of the driver closing the door behind her. Hi, she said. You look nervous. I am nervous. This is weird. You kissed me last night without hesitation. Dinner is what makes you nervous? Last night was panic. This is premeditated. Adrian's mouth curved. Fair distinction. The car pulled away from the curb, moving smoothly through traffic. Lena tried not to stare at the interior. Leather seats, wood paneling, a privacy screen between them and the driver. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere we can talk without being overheard. That's ominous. It's practical. If we're going to convince people we're dating, we need to know basic information about each other. Right, because fake relationships require homework. All relationships require homework. Most people just don't admit it. Lena studied him. In the close confines of the car, she could see details she'd missed last night. The thin scar along his jaw, the calluses on his hands that seemed wrong for a man who worked in an office, the way his eyes never quite stopped moving, tracking everything. What? He asked, catching her staring. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. More corporate? You look like you could be... She stopped, unsure how to finish. Could be what? Dangerous. He didn't laugh it off or deflect. Instead, he held her gaze. Would that bother you? I don't know. Should it? That depends on what you're afraid of. The conversation felt like walking a tightrope, every word weighted, every response revealing more than intended. Lena broke eye contact first, looking out the window. They'd left her neighborhood, moving into an area where buildings grew taller and streets grew cleaner. The car turned onto a tree-lined street Lena recognized from magazine spreads, brownstones with pristine stoops, restaurants with waiting lists measured in months. The car stopped in front of a building with no sign, just a discreet number beside an elegant door. Private club, Adrian explained, reading her confusion. Members only, we won't be bothered. The driver opened her door. Adrian climbed out his side and came around, offering his hand. Lena took it, feeling the calluses again. They walked up 3 steps to the entrance, where a man in a suit opened the door without being asked. Mr. Voss, your usual table is ready. Inside was all dark wood and low lighting, the kind of place where conversations happened in quiet tones and deals were sealed with handshakes. A woman in an impeccable black dress led them through the main dining room. Intimate tables, older clientele, the soft clink of expensive silverware, and up a narrow staircase. The second floor was divided into private dining rooms. She opened a door to reveal a small space with a single table, 2 chairs, and a window overlooking the street below. Your server will be with you shortly, the woman said, then disappeared. Lena sat, feeling off balance. Do you always eat like this? Like what? In private rooms? Away from people? Yes. The blunt answer surprised her. She'd expected some deflection, some charming explanation. Why? She asked. Adrian settled into his chair with the ease of someone comfortable in any environment. Because I value privacy, and because most conversations worth having require discretion. That's lonely. His eyes sharpened. You said that last night too. It's still true. Before he could respond, a server appeared with water and menus. Adrian ordered wine without consulting her, a red she'd never heard of, but that probably cost more than her rent. The server vanished again. They were alone. "So," Adrian said, "tell me about Lena Hart." "What do you want to know?" "Everything. If we're going to make this convincing, I need details. Where you grew up, what you studied, why you want to open a bookstore cafe instead of pursuing something more." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Traditionally lucrative." Lena bristled. "You mean why I'm not chasing money?" "I mean why you're choosing a path that's statistically likely to fail." "Wow. Romance isn't dead after all." His expression didn't change. "I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to understand." The wine arrived. Adrian poured for both of them, the motion practiced and elegant. Lena took a sip. It was good, obviously, but she couldn't have told you why beyond expensive. "I grew up in a small town upstate," she said finally, "the kind of place where the factory closing meant half the parents lost their jobs. We had one bookstore, run by this woman named Mrs. Chen. She let kids come in after school and read for free, didn't care if we bought anything. She had a coffee bar in the back, terrible coffee, but it was warm and safe." Adrian listened without interrupting. "When I was 14, Mrs. Chen had to close. Couldn't compete with online retailers, couldn't afford the rent increases." Lena turned her wine glass, watching the liquid catch the light. "The space sat empty for 2 years. Then it became a check-cashing place. High-interest loans and lottery tickets. And you want to bring it back?" "I want to create spaces like that. Not just stores, community anchors. Places where people can exist without having to buy anything, where kids can discover books they'd never find otherwise, where—" She stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "Sorry, I get preachy." "You get passionate. That's different." The way he said it made her look up. He was watching her with that intense focus again, like he was cataloging every word and expression. "Your turn," she said. "Tell me about Adrian Voss. What do you want to know?" "Everything, apparently. That's the rule, right?" His mouth twitched. "I grew up in the city, East Side, before it was fashionable. My father worked construction. My mother cleaned houses." Lena's eyebrows rose. She'd assumed old money, country clubs, prep schools. "Surprised?" Adrian asked. "Yes. Most people are. They see the company, the money, and assume it was always there." "How did you—" She gestured vaguely, encompassing the private dining room, the wine, the life he clearly led now. "I worked. Scholarships got me through business school. After that, I started small, buying distressed properties, fixing them up, selling at a profit, built from there." The clinical summary felt incomplete, like a resume rather than a story. But before Lena could push, the server returned with their first course. They ate in relative silence, the food exquisite, and probably technically complicated, though Lena couldn't have named half the ingredients. Between courses, Adrian asked questions, her favorite books, her thesis research, what she did for work beyond the coffee shop. She found herself answering honestly, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. He didn't interrupt or redirect the conversation back to himself. He just listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel like every word mattered. "What about you?" she asked as plates were cleared. "What do you do when you're not working?" "I work." That's not an answer. It's an accurate one. Lena set down her wine glass. "You don't have hobbies, friends, anything?" "I have colleagues, associates." "That's sad." His jaw tightened slightly. "It's efficient. It's lonely." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." They stared at each other across the table. The tension shifted, becoming something Lena couldn't quite name, not hostile but not comfortable either. "Why did you really agree to this?" she asked suddenly. "The fake dating thing. It can't just be because you're bored." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "When you are in my position, people want things from you. Money, connections, access. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship is transactional. And this isn't? This is explicitly transactional, which makes it honest." He leaned back in his chair. "You kissed me because you needed an escape route. I helped because it served a purpose. No pretense. No performance. Except the performance of dating, which we both know is fake. The honesty is in the acknowledgement." Lena turned this over, trying to decide if it was cynical or refreshingly direct. Maybe both. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we establish a pattern. Dinner once or twice a week. Maybe a public event or two. Enough to be seen, enough to be convincing. For how long? A month? 6 weeks? Until your ex moves on and finds a new target." It should have felt cold, this clinical discussion of their fake relationship. Instead, it felt like solid ground. Rules and boundaries and expectations clearly defined. "Okay," Lena said. "Okay? Okay. We'll do this. But I have conditions." Interest flickered in Adrian's eyes. "Name them." "First, honesty. If this is going to work, we don't lie to each other. The relationship is fake, but our conversations aren't." "Agreed." "Second, boundaries. This is business. We're not—" She searched for the right words. Blurring lines. Something unreadable crossed his face. "Understood." "Third, an exit strategy. Either of us can end this whenever we want, no questions asked." Adrian extended his hand across the table. "Deal." Lena shook it. His grip was firm, his skin warm. He held on a beat longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that felt deliberate. "So," he said, releasing her hand, "when's our next date?" The word date in his mouth did something complicated to her pulse. "You tell me. You're the one with the car and the private dining rooms." "Thursday. There's a gallery opening in Chelsea. Boring, but highly visible. We'll make an appearance." "I don't have anything to wear to a gallery opening. I'll send something over. You can't just—" "Lena." He said her name like a period, ending the argument. "If we're going to do this, do it right. That means looking the part." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle her own wardrobe, but pride was expensive and her checking account was not. "Fine," she said, "but nothing too revealing. Or pink. I hate pink." Noted. They finished dinner with easier conversation. Books they'd both read, neighborhoods they knew, the kind of surface-level getting-to-know-you talk that felt weirdly normal given the circumstances. When the bill came, Adrian paid without looking at it. The car was waiting when they stepped outside. The night had turned cold, and Lena pulled her jacket tighter. "I'll take you home," Adrian said. They rode in silence, Lena watching the city slide past her window. Familiar streets appeared, her neighborhood, her block, her building with its perpetually broken buzzer. The car stopped. Adrian's driver opened her door. "Thursday," Adrian said. 6:30. The car will pick you up." "Okay." She started to climb out, then paused. "Adrian?" "Yes?" "Thank you. For dinner. And for—" She gestured vaguely. "All of this." His expression softened just slightly. "You're welcome." Lena walked to her building, feeling his eyes on her back. When she reached the door and looked back, the car was still there, idling at the curb. She waved awkwardly. After a moment, the car pulled away. Inside her apartment, Lena leaned against the door and released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her phone buzzed. Maya. "Well?" Lena typed back. "Survived. Details tomorrow." Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. She opened it. "Sleep well, Lena." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the reply field. Finally, she typed, "You too." Then she deleted it and wrote instead, "See you Thursday." The response came immediately. "I'm counting on it." Lena set her phone down and looked around her tiny apartment. 24 hours ago, her life had been predictable. Boring, maybe, but safe. Now she was fake dating a billionaire to fool her ex, and she had no idea if this was the smartest move she'd ever made or the beginning of something she'd regret. She suspected it might be both. Thursday arrived faster than Lena wanted. She spent Wednesday alternating between confidence that this was a reasonable plan and certainty that she'd lost her mind. Maya had shown up at her apartment Tuesday night with wine and questions, and Lena had found herself defending Adrian to someone who hadn't even accused him of anything. "I'm just saying, billionaires don't do favors," Maya had said, sprawled across Lena's bed. "There's always an angle." Maybe his angle is exactly what he said. He's bored. Men like that don't get bored. They get strategic. Lena had thrown a pillow at her.
You're the one who told me to say yes. I know, and I stand by it. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open.
Now, standing in her apartment at 6 o'clock Thursday evening, Lena wished she'd pressed Maya for more specific warnings. The dress had arrived that afternoon in a sleek black box with no return address. Inside, tissue paper had concealed a midnight blue dress that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Simple lines, elegant cut, the kind of thing that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. She'd tried it on 3 times, each time finding new reasons to hate how well it fit. Her phone buzzed. The car was downstairs. Lena grabbed her bag, her regular worn leather one, because she drew the line at borrowing accessories, and headed down. The same driver from Sunday waited by the car, his expression professionally neutral as he opened her door. Adrian sat inside, looking like he'd walked out of a magazine spread. Dark suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone in a way that should have looked casual, but instead looked calculated. His eyes swept over her as she slid in. "You wore the dress," he said. "Was I supposed to return it out of spite?" "Some women would have. I'm practical, remember? You said so yourself." His mouth curved slightly. "I did." The car pulled into traffic. Lena watched the city slide past, the buildings growing taller and more expensive as they moved downtown. She felt like an imposter in the borrowed dress, playing a role she hadn't auditioned for. "Nervous?" Adrian asked. "Should I be?" "Probably. These events are terrible." "Then why are we going?" "Because terrible and useful aren't mutually exclusive." He shifted to face her more fully. "The gallery owner is launching a new space in the meatpacking district. Half the city's real estate developers will be there, along with the usual art collectors and socialites. We'll be seen, photographed, and discussed. Exactly what we need." "Sounds exhausting." "It is. But it's also, He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Necessary. In my world, visibility is currency. Being seen with the right people in the right places opens doors. And I'm the right people now? You're an attractive woman with an interesting story. The scholarship student with big dreams, dating the self-made billionaire. People will eat it up." The clinical assessment should have stung. Instead, Lena appreciated the honesty. At least he wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was. "What's my story?" she asked. "If people ask how we met." "The truth, mostly. We met at the university gala. You caught my attention. I asked you to dinner. Leaving out the part where I kissed you without permission. That detail can stay between us." The car stopped in front of a converted warehouse in Chelsea, all glass and steel and modern angles. A small crowd had gathered outside, photographers mostly, along with a few curious onlookers. Lena's stomach tightened. "There are cameras," she said. "There are always cameras." Adrian's hand found hers, his grip steady. "Just stay close to me. I'll handle the questions." The driver opened the door. Sound rushed in, voices, camera shutters, the ambient noise of the city. Adrian stepped out first, then turned to offer his hand. Lena took it, trying to channel the confidence she didn't feel. Flashes went off immediately. Questions came from multiple directions, overlapping and indistinct. Adrian kept her close, his hand firm on the small of her back as they moved toward the entrance. "Mr. Voss, who's your date?" "Adrian, over here, look this way." "Is this your new girlfriend?" Adrian didn't stop walking, but his voice carried when he answered. "This is Lena Hart." "And yes, we're together." The simple confirmation sent the photographers into a frenzy. More flashes, more questions. Lena kept her expression neutral, the way she'd learned to do at the university events where being a scholarship student meant being scrutinized. Then they were inside, and the noise cut off like a door closing. The gallery was crowded with the kind of people Lena recognized from magazines. Women in designer dresses that cost thousands, men in suits that fit like second skins, everyone holding champagne flutes and speaking in that particular tone that suggested importance without volume. A woman in severe black approached immediately. "Mr. Voss, thank you for coming, and this must be—" "Lena Hart," Adrian said smoothly. "Lena, this is Victoria Chen, the gallery owner." They shook hands. Victoria's grip was firm, her assessment quick and thorough. Lena felt cataloged and categorized in about 3 seconds. "Lovely to meet you," Victoria said, though her attention had already shifted back to Adrian. "I wanted to discuss the Tribeca property. Do you have a moment?" Of course. Lena, would you excuse me? Before she could answer, he was being led away into the crowd. Lena stood alone, suddenly conscious of every eye that had followed their entrance. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing server and took a sip that was more courage than thirst. So you're the one who finally caught him. Lena turned. A woman about her age stood there, blonde and beautiful, in the way that suggested extensive maintenance. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm sorry? Adrian Voss, the city's most eligible bachelor. We've all been wondering who would finally pin him down. She extended a manicured hand. Sienna Rothschild. The name rang bells. Old money, if Lena remembered correctly. The kind of family that had buildings named after them. Lena Hart. Oh, I know who you are. Everyone's been talking since you walked in. Sienna's eyes swept over Lena's dress. That's one of Marcus Chen's designs, isn't it? Spring collection. Adrian has good taste. The implication was clear. Adrian had chosen the dress, which meant he was dressing her, which meant she couldn't afford to dress herself. Lena's jaw tightened. He does, she said evenly. So how did you two meet? The rumor mill is working overtime. At a university event, we connected over a shared interest in community development. It wasn't quite a lie. They had met at a university event, and Adrian had listened to her talk about bookstore cafes, which was community development adjacent. Sienna's smile sharpened. How civic-minded, and what do you do, Lena? I'm working on opening a bookstore cafe. How charming. Like a little hobby. The dismissal was subtle but unmistakable. Lena had dealt with enough wealthy students to recognize the tone, the kind that made your dreams sound quaint and your ambitions adorable. More like a life's work, Lena said, but I can see how that might be hard to understand for some people. Sienna's eyes narrowed slightly. Before she could respond, a hand touched Lena's elbow. She turned to find Adrian beside her, his expression pleasant but his grip proprietary. Sienna, he said coolly. I see you've met Lena. We were just getting acquainted. Sienna's smile remained fixed. She's delightful, Adrian. So refreshingly earnest. She is. His thumb traced a small circle on Lena's arm, a gesture so casual and intimate that it sent heat up her spine. If you'll excuse us, I promised Lena a tour of the collection. He guided her away before Sienna could respond. They moved through the crowd, Adrian nodding to people but not stopping. When they reached a quieter corner near a massive abstract canvas, he released her arm. Sorry about that, he said quietly. Sienna can be territorial. Territorial about what? His expression was unreadable. Me, apparently. We dated briefly a few years ago. She's had difficulty accepting that it ended. You dated Sienna Rothschild? For about 3 months. It was a mistake. Lena studied him, trying to reconcile the man who'd listened to her talk about bookstores with someone who'd date a woman like Sienna. The pieces didn't fit. What? Adrian asked, reading her expression. Nothing. Just trying to figure you out. Let me know if you succeed. I've been working on it for 38 years. The dry comment surprised a laugh out of her. Adrian's expression softened slightly, and Lena realized this was the first time she'd seen him look almost relaxed. Come on, he said. Let me show you why we're really here. They moved through the gallery, Adrian stopping occasionally to exchange brief words with other guests. He introduced her each time, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Lena noticed how people reacted to him, deference mixed with wariness, like he was a predator they weren't sure was domesticated. The art itself was interesting, bold colors and aggressive shapes that suggested violence held barely in check. Lena found herself drawn to a particular piece, a canvas dominated by deep blues and blacks, with threads of gold breaking through like fractures. You like it? Adrian asked. I'm not sure like is the right word, but it makes me feel something. That's more than most art manages. He stepped closer to read the placard, titled Breaking Point. Fitting. They stood there in silence, studying the painting. The noise of the gallery faded into background hum. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Yes. Why are you really doing this? And don't say because you're bored. I don't buy it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that she had to lean in to hear. Do you know what it's like to have every person you meet want something from you? To never know if someone's laughing at your joke because it's funny or because they want funding for their startup? To question every friendship, every conversation, every relationship.
No, Lena admitted. It's exhausting and isolating, and it makes you. He stopped, seeming to reconsider.
When you kissed me, you didn't know who I was. You weren't trying to impress me or use me. You were just desperate and honest. It was refreshing. So this is about novelty? This is about honesty. We both know what this is. There's no pretense, no performance beyond the one we agreed to. He turned to face her fully. In my life, that's rare. Lena wanted to argue that he was wrong, that he could find genuine connections if he tried. But looking at him in this gallery surrounded by people who watched his every move with calculating eyes, she wondered if maybe he was right. That's sad, she said finally. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. His mouth quirked. You don't pull punches, do you? Would you prefer I did? No. He said it with certainty. No, I wouldn't. Someone called Adrian's name. He sighed, the sound so quietly frustrated that Lena almost missed it. Duty calls, he said. Stay close? Where else would I go? The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Lena smiled until her cheeks ached, made conversation about the art, and fielded questions about how she and Adrian met. She stuck to their agreed story, keeping it simple and vague. People were curious but careful, their questions probing but polite. She realized Adrian's presence was a shield. No one wanted to offend him by being too aggressive with his girlfriend. Around 9, Adrian leaned close. We've been seen enough. Want to get out of here? Please. They made their exit, Adrian stopping only to thank Victoria. The photographers were gone from the entrance, but Lena noticed a few phone cameras pointed their way as they walked to the car. Inside, she kicked off her heels and groaned. Comfortable? Adrian asked, amused. These shoes are torture devices. Beautiful torture devices, but still torture. You can take them off. In a moving car? That feels wrong. Lena, you're sitting in a car that costs more than most people's houses. I think we're past worrying about propriety. She laughed and slipped off the other shoe. Fair point. They rode in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Lena watched the city lights, processing the evening. It had been overwhelming, but not terrible. Adrian had been attentive without being controlling, protective without being possessive. You did well tonight, he said. I didn't do anything. You held your own with Sienna. That's not nothing. She's known for eating people alive at these events. She called my life's work a hobby. She was testing you, seeing if you'd fold. I don't fold easily. I noticed. There was approval in his tone. Most people do, when faced with that crowd. They either try too hard to fit in or retreat entirely. You just existed, comfortably. I didn't feel comfortable. You hit it well. The car stopped in front of her building. Adrian's driver opened her door, and Lena realized she was still holding her shoes. Very elegant, Adrian observed. I'm a walking disaster. You should probably upgrade girlfriends. Fake girlfriends, he corrected. And you're fine. Lena climbed out, shoes dangling from one hand. Adrian followed, which surprised her. You don't have to walk me up, she said. I know. They climbed the 4 flights in silence. At her door, Lena fumbled for her keys, suddenly aware of how small and shabby her building must seem to someone like Adrian. Well, she said, thanks for the evening, and the dress, and the shoes that tried to kill me. You're welcome. He didn't move to leave. Lena? Yeah? For what it's worth, Sienna was wrong. What you're trying to build isn't a hobby. It's ambitious and difficult and probably going to fail spectacularly. She blinked. That's supposed to be encouraging? I'm not done. It's ambitious and difficult and probably going to fail, but you're doing it anyway. That takes courage. Most people don't have that. The compliment delivered in Adrian's matter-of-fact tone hit harder than flowery praise would have. Lena felt heat climb her neck. Thanks, she managed. I'll call you about next week. There's a charity dinner on Wednesday that would be useful. More useful torture? Exactly. He stepped closer, and for a moment Lena thought he might kiss her. Her breath caught, but he just reached past her to push a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture casual and devastating. Good night, Lena. Night. She watched him descend the stairs, then let herself into her apartment and leaned against the door. Her phone buzzed immediately. Maya.
I saw the photos. You look amazing. Details. Now. Lena texted back. Tomorrow. Too tired tonight. Maya. Fine, but I'm coming over at 8 a.m. with coffee and demanding answers. Lena smiled despite her exhaustion. She set her phone down and looked at the dress draped over her chair. In the dim light of her apartment, it looked like something from another life. Her phone buzzed again. She expected Maya with more demands. Instead, you were right about the shoes. I'll do better next time. She stared at the message, something warm unfurling in her chest. Before she could overthink it, she typed, "Next time, skip the heels entirely. Flats are underrated." The response came quickly. Noted. Sleep well. Lena fell asleep still wearing the dress, too tired to change, and dreamed of galleries and gold fractures and dark eyes that saw too much. Maya arrived at 8 the next morning as threatened, bearing coffee and pastries and an expression that promised interrogation. "Spill," she demanded, settling onto Lena's bed. "And I mean everything. How was dinner? How was the gallery? Did he kiss you?" "No kissing. It's fake, remember?" "The pictures didn't look fake." Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling to a celebrity gossip site. "Look at this." Lena leaned over. The photo showed her and Adrian at the gallery, his hand on her back, both of them looking at something off camera. The caption read, "Adrian Voss steps out with mystery woman." "Mystery woman," Lena muttered. "How dramatic. There are like 15 articles about you two. People are obsessed." Maya kept scrolling. "Oh, here's a good one. From scholarship student to billionaire's girlfriend, the Lena Hart story." They found out about the scholarship? "Honey, they found out everything. Your thesis topic, where you work, your childhood town. The internet is thorough and deeply creepy." Lena's stomach sank. She'd known there would be attention, but seeing her life reduced to clickbait headlines felt invasive. "Hey," Maya said, reading her expression. "You okay?" "Just weird, having strangers know things about me." "Welcome to dating someone famous, even fake dating." Maya set her phone aside. "So what's he actually like?" "When the cameras aren't around." Lena considered the question. "Intense, smart, surprisingly honest about what this is." "Which is?" "A mutually beneficial arrangement." "Lena, no relationship is ever really mutually beneficial. Someone always wants more. Not this one. We both know the score." Maya gave her a look that suggested she knew better but wasn't going to argue. "Just be careful, okay? Guys like Adrian Voss don't do anything without a reason." "His reason is that I'm honest. He said so." "And you believe him?" "Why wouldn't I?" "Because billionaires don't operate on simple motives. There's always layers." Lena wanted to defend Adrian, which was stupid because Maya was probably right. But something about the way he'd talked last night, that quiet admission of loneliness, had felt genuine. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Lena Hart?" A woman's voice, professional and brisk. "Yes?" "This is Jennifer Ward from Metropolitan Magazine. I'm doing a piece on Adrian Voss's new relationship, and I'd love to get a quote from you about—" Lena hung up. "Let me guess," Maya said. "Reporter? How did you know?" "Because they've probably been calling everyone who's ever met you. Turn your phone off for a bit." But the phone rang again immediately. Different number, same request. Lena ignored it. Then her work phone buzzed, a text from Rita. "Rita, reporter showed up at the shop asking about you. I told them you don't work today. Heads up." "This is insane," Lena muttered. Maya squeezed her shoulder. "It'll die down once they find the next scandal. Just lay low for a few days." But over the weekend, it only got worse. Lena's Instagram gained 5,000 followers overnight. Strangers commented on photos from years ago, asking about Adrian, speculating about their relationship, picking apart her appearance. Someone found her LinkedIn and shared it on Twitter. A fashion blog did a breakdown of her gallery outfit, crediting designers she'd never heard of. By Monday, Lena was ready to quit the whole charade. She was pulling a double shift at the coffee shop when Adrian walked in. The shop went quiet. Every head turned. Rita's eyes went wide behind the register. Adrian seemed unbothered by the attention. He approached the counter, hands in his pockets, looking absurdly out of place among the college students and freelancers. "Hi," Lena said, hyper-aware of everyone watching. "Hi yourself. Can we talk?" "I'm working." "Take your break," Rita interjected quickly. "Take a long break. Take an hour." Lena shot her a look, but Rita's expression was pure determination. Apparently, even her normally unflappable manager wasn't immune to Adrian's presence. Fine. Give me 2 minutes. She made Adrian's drink, a flat white, though he hadn't ordered, and poured herself a coffee. Then she led him to the corner table farthest from the door, ignoring the stares that followed them. "You didn't have to come here," she said, sitting. "You weren't answering your phone." "I turned it off. Reporters won't stop calling." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I should have warned you about that. I'm sorry." "You think?" "Lena, do you know what it's like to have strangers dissecting your life online? Commenting on your clothes, your background, whether you're pretty enough to date you." She knew she sounded angry, probably unfairly, but the weekend had frayed her patience. "I agreed to fake date you, not become a public spectacle." "I know, and I am sorry. I should have prepared you better." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "But I can help. I have a PR person who handles this kind of thing. She can field the media requests, manage the narrative." "Manage the narrative," Lena repeated. "You mean lie?" "I mean control what information gets out and how it's framed. You don't have to talk to anyone you don't want to talk to." It was practical, Lena knew, but it also felt like surrendering more control, letting Adrian's world swallow hers a little more. "I don't know," she said. "Think about it. In the meantime, I wanted to give you this." He slid a business card across the table. "My personal number, direct line. If anyone bothers you, reporters, photographers, anyone, call me immediately." Lena picked up the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, very Adrian. "Why are you being nice about this?" she asked. "Because you didn't sign up for harassment. You signed up for a few public appearances and a solution to your ex-boyfriend problem. He gestured vaguely at the coffee shop where people were still watching them. "This is my fault." His taking responsibility surprised her. Most people would have blamed her for not anticipating the attention. "Okay," she said. "I'll think about the PR person. Thank you." He glanced at his watch. "I should let you get back to work. But Lena, the charity dinner Wednesday is important. If you're having second thoughts about all this, now's the time to say so." She should say so. Should end this before it spiraled further. But Damien had been silent since the gallery photos dropped, and that alone felt worth the chaos. "I'll be there," she said. Adrian's expression eased. "Good. I'll send details." He stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised." After he left, Rita appeared at Lena's elbow. "That," she said, "was Adrian Voss." "I know. In my coffee shop, drinking coffee I made." "Rita, I'm not judging. I'm processing. My employee is dating a billionaire." "Fake dating." Rita waved this away. "Details. The point is, he came here to check on you. That's either really sweet or really controlling, and I can't tell which." "Neither can I," Lena admitted. She finished her shift in a daze, her mind churning. When she got home, she found a package waiting. A new phone, already set up, with a note in Adrian's precise handwriting. "New number, fewer reporters. Your old contacts have been transferred. A." It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like relief. Wednesday's charity dinner was at the plaza, in a ballroom that dripped crystal and old money. Lena wore another borrowed dress. This one emerald green and somehow even more expensive than the last. Adrian had sent shoes too, flats as requested, which made her smile despite her nerves. The event was bigger than the gallery opening, with hundreds of guests and actual media presence. Adrian kept her close as they navigated the crowd, introducing her to people whose names she forgot immediately. Dinner was elaborate and endless, course after course, while people gave speeches about charitable causes and tax write-offs disguised as altruism. Lena found herself seated between Adrian and an older woman who owned a chain of boutique hotels. "So you're the one who caught our Adrian," the woman said, her eyes twinkling. "I've known him since he was scraping together his first property deal. Never thought I'd see him settle down." "We're not," Lena caught herself. "It's still new. The best ones always are." The woman patted her hand. "He's a good man, you know. Doesn't show it often, but he is. Takes care of people who matter to him." Lena glanced at Adrian, who was deep in conversation with the man on his other side. She wondered if that was true, if beneath the controlled exterior was someone capable of genuine care. As if sensing her gaze, Adrian turned. His hand found hers under the table, squeezing once. The gesture was small, probably invisible to everyone else. But Lena felt it like a spark, warmth spreading up her arm. This was supposed to be fake. Simple. Clear boundaries and honest transactions. So why did holding his hand feel like falling? The squeeze of Adrian's hand under the table lasted maybe 3 seconds, but Lena felt it for the rest of dinner. She tried to focus on the speeches, the clinking of silverware, the polite laughter that rippled through the ballroom at appropriate intervals, but her attention kept drifting back to that moment of contact, the casual intimacy of it. This was dangerous territory. She knew it the way you know you're getting sick before the symptoms fully hit. That low-level awareness that something was shifting, changing, moving beyond her control. After dinner, the crowd dispersed into smaller groups. A jazz quartet set up in the corner, and couples drifted toward an improvised dance floor. Adrian was pulled into conversation with a silver-haired man who looked vaguely familiar, probably from the news. Lena found herself standing alone near the bar, nursing champagne she didn't really want. Quite the spectacle, isn't it? She turned. A man in his 50s stood beside her, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit, and eyes that cataloged everything. Something about him set off alarm bells. "I'm sorry," Lena said. "These events, all this performance of caring while people write checks to feel better about themselves." He extended a hand. "Marcus Webb. I work in acquisitions." Lena shook his hand briefly. "Lena Hart. Oh, I know who you are. Adrian's new companion. The whole city's talking about it." There was something in the way he said companion that made Lena's skin crawl. Not quite an insult, but not respectful either. "Are they?" she said flatly. "Of course. Adrian Voss doesn't date. Hasn't in years, so when he shows up with someone like you..." Marcus gestured with his drink, the motion deliberately vague. "People notice." "Someone like me? Young, beautiful, from a completely different world than his usual circles." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's quite the Cinderella story." Lena's jaw tightened. She'd dealt with condescension before, usually from wealthy students who thought her scholarship was charity, but there was something sharper in Marcus's tone, something that felt less like snobbery and more like warning. "I should get back," she said. "Of course. But a word of advice, if you'll permit an old hand?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Men like Adrian don't change their patterns without reason. Whatever arrangement you two have, make sure you understand what you're actually agreeing to." Before Lena could respond, Adrian appeared at her elbow. His expression was pleasant, but his eyes had gone cold. "Marcus," he said, "I didn't know you'd be here. Last-minute addition. The foundation wanted representation from our firm." Marcus's smile remained fixed. "I was just congratulating Ms. Hart on capturing your attention." "How thoughtful." Adrian's hand found Lena's waist, possessive in a way that felt like a statement. "If you'll excuse us, I promised Lena a dance." He guided her away before Marcus could respond. They moved through the crowd to the edge of the dance floor where other couples swayed to the quartet's smooth rendition of something old and romantic. "What did he say to you?" Adrian asked quietly. "Nothing important, just making sure I knew my place, I think." Adrian's expression darkened. He seemed to choose his words carefully. "Not someone whose opinion matters." He seemed to think his opinion mattered a lot. "He's a parasite who makes money off other people's failures. Don't let him get in your head." The vehemence in Adrian's tone surprised her. She'd seen him cool and controlled, amused and intense, but never quite this close to angry. "I'm fine," she said. "I've dealt with worse." "I know you have. That doesn't make it acceptable." The music shifted to something slower. Couples pressed closer together. Adrian held out his hand. "Dance with me?" It wasn't really a question, but it felt like one anyway. Lena hesitated, aware that accepting meant crossing another invisible line. But people were watching, and this was supposed to be convincing, so she took his hand. He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They moved together, and Lena was surprised to discover he was a good dancer, smooth and confident, leading without forcing. "You're full of surprises," she murmured. "Dancing lessons at 14, my mother insisted." The same mother who cleaned houses? The same one who refused to let poverty define what I was capable of learning. There was pride in his voice, warm and genuine. She saved for months to pay for those lessons. Said dancing was a skill I'd need in business. Was she right? About most things, yes. They turned and Lena caught sight of their reflection in the ballroom's mirrored walls. They looked like they belonged together. Her in the borrowed dress, him in the perfect suit, moving in sync like they'd done this 100 times before. The image should have felt false. Instead, it felt dangerously real. Lena? Adrian's voice pulled her back. Sorry, just thinking. About? How good we look for people who are lying. His hand tightened on her waist, almost imperceptibly. We're not lying about everything, aren't we? No. He said it with certainty. The arrangement is fake. The rest, the conversations, the dinners, it's real. We're just real people pretending to date while actually getting to know each other. That's a very fine distinction. Most important things are. The song ended. Applause rippled through the room. Adrian stepped back, creating appropriate distance, but his eyes stayed on hers. I should make another round, he said. Shake some hands, have some pointless conversations. Will you be okay? I'm not fragile, Adrian. I know, but this is my world and I'm making you navigate it. That feels, he paused, unfair. The admission caught her off guard. She'd expected him to be matter-of-fact about using her as a prop, but there was genuine discomfort in his expression. I agreed to this, she reminded him. I knew what I was signing up for. Did you? Before she could answer, a woman in red appeared, touching Adrian's arm with familiar ease. Adrian, darling, the commissioner wants to speak with you about the waterfront project. Of course. He glanced at Lena. I'll find you in a bit? I'll be here. She watched him disappear into the crowd, then made her way back to the bar. The bartender poured her a fresh champagne without asking. Lena sipped it slowly, observing the room with new eyes. Everyone here had an angle. Every conversation was a negotiation, every smile a calculation. Adrian navigated it with practiced ease, but she could see the strain now, the way his shoulders tensed when certain people approached, the careful neutrality of his expression, the constant vigilance. You look lost in thought. Lena turned to find an older black woman in stunning purple, her natural hair silver and striking against her dark skin. Unlike most people at this event, her smile seemed genuine. Just observing, Lena said. Wise. These things are much more interesting when you watch instead of participate. She extended her hand. Diane Morrison. I run the literacy foundation that's being honored tonight. Lena shook her hand, suddenly more interested. The Morrison Foundation? I've read about your work. The mobile libraries in underserved neighborhoods. That's brilliant. Diane's eyebrows rose. Not many people here have actually read about our work. Most just know we throw good parties. I wrote my thesis on community literacy programs. Your foundation came up a lot in my research. Did it now? Diane's interest sharpened. You're Lena Hart, aren't you? The one dating Adrian? That's me. I read about you too. The bookstore cafe concept, combining retail with community space and literacy programming. Diane sipped her drink. It's ambitious. That's the polite way of saying it'll probably fail. No, ambitious is exactly what I meant. Ambitious is good. We need more people willing to think big. She studied Lena with clear eyes. How's the funding coming? The question was casual, but Lena felt her stomach drop. Slowly. Banks aren't interested in lending to someone with no business experience and no collateral. That's because banks are idiots who only know how to read spreadsheets. Diane pulled out her phone. Send me your business plan. I want to see what you're working with. What? Your business plan. You have one, right? Yes, but good. Send it to me. Diane rattled off an email address. The foundation has a small business initiative. We provide seed funding for community-focused ventures. Your project might be a good fit. Lena stared at her, hardly believing what she was hearing. You're serious. I don't joke about funding. Send me the plan by Friday, and I'll review it over the weekend. Diane's expression turned shrewd. Fair warning, I'm brutal with feedback. If your plan has holes, I'll find them. I can handle brutal. I believe you can. Diane glanced across the room, where Adrian was shaking hands with the commissioner. He's good for you, I think. Adrian? He needs someone who isn't afraid to be honest with him. Most people see the money and the power and forget he's human. She looked back at Lena. You don't do that. We barely know each other. Some people you know in 5 minutes. Others take years and you still don't understand them. Diane patted Lena's arm. Send me that plan. Let's see if we can't make something happen. She drifted away into the crowd, leaving Lena slightly stunned. A potential funding source. An actual, real possibility for her dream. She pulled out her phone to make a note, then stopped. This had happened because she was here with Adrian. Because his presence gave her access to people like Diane Morrison. People who normally wouldn't give her the time of day. The realization sat uncomfortably in her chest. She wanted to succeed on her own merits, not because she was dating, fake dating, someone powerful. But was there really a difference? Networking was networking. Using connections was how business worked. You looked troubled. Adrian had returned holding 2 glasses of champagne. He offered her one. I just met Diane Morrison, Lena said. Diane's great, sharp as hell, and doesn't suffer fools. She wants to see my business plan for potential funding through her foundation. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's excellent. Her foundation has a good track record. Is that why you brought me here? To connect me with people who could fund my project? The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Adrian set down his champagne glass, his full attention on her. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think. We're here on a fake date, and suddenly I'm getting opportunities I couldn't access on my own. It feels... She struggled for the word. Transactional. It is transactional. That's what we agreed to. I know, but... Lena pressed her fingers to her temples. I wanted to do this myself. Build something on my own merits, not because I'm attached to someone powerful. Adrian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Do you know how I got my first major investment? No. A chance conversation at a construction site. I was working demolition, and one of the property developers stopped to talk. We got on the subject of neighborhood revitalization, and I mentioned some ideas I had. 2 weeks later, he called me with seed funding. Adrian's eyes held hers. Was that my merit, or was that luck? Did I earn it, or did I just happen to be in the right place at the right time? That's different. Why? Because you're a woman? Because you're young? Because you think accepting help means you didn't work hard enough? He shook his head. Lena, you wrote a thesis on this. You did the research, developed the business plan, identified the need. The only thing you're getting from being here is access to people who might listen. What you do with that access is entirely on you. He wasn't wrong. Logically, Lena knew he wasn't wrong. But emotion and logic rarely occupied the same space. I just don't want to be someone who succeeds because of who they're dating, she said quietly. You're not. You're someone who's using available resources to pursue a goal. That's smart, not shameful. Adrian stepped closer, his voice dropping. And for what it's worth, I didn't bring you here to network. I brought you here because we had an agreement. Diane approaching you was her choice, based on your work, not my influence. How do I know that? Because if I wanted to fund your project, I'd just write you a check. I don't need to orchestrate elaborate introductions. His mouth quirked. I'm rich, remember? I can be direct. Despite herself, Lena laughed. That's fair. Send Diane your plan. Let her evaluate it on merit. If she funds you, great. If she doesn't, you'll have gotten feedback from someone who knows what she's talking about. He picked up his champagne again. Either way, you lose nothing by trying. Lena nodded slowly. He was right. She knew he was right. But accepting it meant accepting that her success might be tangled up with this fake relationship in ways she couldn't cleanly separate. The quartet started playing again. More couples moved to the dance floor. Adrian glanced at his watch. We've been here 3 hours, he said. I think that's sufficient for appearances. Want to leave? Please. They made their exit, Adrian stopping to say brief goodbyes to key people. In the car, Lena kicked off her flats and leaned her head back against the leather seat. These events are exhausting, she muttered. They are. But you handled it well. I met 2 condescending men and 1 potentially life-changing contact. I'd call that a mixed bag. Marcus is always condescending. And the other one? Some guy at the bar who implied I was your latest charity project. Adrian's jaw tightened. Name? I don't remember, and it doesn't matter. It matters to me. The intensity in his voice made her look over. His expression had gone hard, dangerous in a way that reminded her of their first meeting, that coiled energy that suggested he was much more than a businessman in an expensive suit. "Adrian," she said carefully, "it's fine. I can handle people being jerks. You shouldn't have to. Not at an event I brought you to. I'm a grown woman. I don't need you to fight my battles." "I know you don't need me to. That doesn't mean I won't." They stared at each other in the dim light of the car. Lena felt that same dangerous pull, the one that made her want to lean closer, to test the boundaries they'd so carefully established. Instead, she looked away. "Where are we going?" "Your apartment. Unless you want to go somewhere else." "No, home is good." The drive passed in silence, but it felt different from the comfortable quiet of earlier. This silence had weight, tension, all the things they weren't saying filling the space between them. When they reached her building, Adrian walked her up again. At her door, Lena fumbled with her keys, aware of him standing close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and subtle that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. Stop thanking me. This arrangement benefits us both, remember? Still, you didn't have to defend me to Marcus, or validate my feelings about Diane's offer. You could have just," she shrugged, "gone through the motions." "Is that what you think I'm doing? Going through the motions? Aren't you?" Adrian stepped closer, close enough that Lena had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture that felt far too intimate for their supposed arrangement. "If I were going through the motions," he said quietly, "I wouldn't give a damn what Marcus Webb said to you. I wouldn't care if you felt conflicted about accepting help. And I definitely wouldn't be standing here trying to figure out if kissing you would be the worst decision I've made this year." Lena's breath caught. "Adrian, I know. Boundaries, rules. This is supposed to be simple." His thumb traced along her jaw. "You're making it very complicated." "I'm not doing anything. You're being yourself. That's enough." He was going to kiss her. Lena could see it in his eyes, feel it in the tension of his body. And she was going to let him, which would shatter every boundary they'd established and turn this fake relationship into something neither of them could control. His phone rang. The spell broke. Adrian stepped back, his expression shifting from intense to professional in the space of a heartbeat. He pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and his jaw tightened. "I have to take this," he said. "Okay," he answered as he walked toward the stairs. "What is it?" Lena let herself into her apartment and leaned against the door, heart hammering. That had been close. Too close. She needed to get her head straight, remember what this was. A transaction, a temporary arrangement, nothing more. Her phone buzzed. Maya, naturally. "Maya, saw pics from the charity thing. You two look cozy." "Lena, we're acting. It's called being convincing, Maya." "Sure, keep telling yourself that." "Keeps out." Lena tossed her phone onto the bed and went to change, peeling off the expensive dress with more force than necessary. She needed perspective, needed to remember that men like Adrian Voss didn't actually fall for women like her. This was all performance, carefully managed and ultimately meaningless. Her phone rang, Adrian's number. "Hello? I'm sorry about that." His voice sounded tight. "Work emergency. At 11 p.m.? My world doesn't keep business hours." A pause. "I wanted to finish our conversation." "I think we finished it." "Lena, we should stick to the rules, Adrian. That's what makes this work." Silence on the other end. Then, "You're right. Of course you're right. So I'll see you when? Next week sometime?" "There's a dinner Friday. My business partner's birthday. Very small, very intimate. His wife specifically asked me to bring you." Another performance. Another appearance, yes. The formal distance in his tone felt like a door closing. Which was good, Lena told herself. This was exactly what they needed. Clear boundaries, professional distance, no more almost kisses in hallways. So why did it feel like losing something? "Friday works," she said. "I'll send details. Good night, Lena." "Night." She hung up and stared at her phone, feeling hollowed out and confused. This was supposed to be simple. Why did nothing about Adrian Voss feel simple? The next morning, Lena sent her business plan to Diane Morrison. Then she went to work, pulled a double shift, and tried not to think about dark eyes and almost kisses. She was mostly successful. Thursday, Diane called. "Your plan is good," she said without preamble. "Needs some refinement, but the bones are solid. Can you meet Monday afternoon? I want to discuss some modifications before presenting it to my board." "Yes, absolutely. Monday works."
Good. And Lena? This stands on its own merit. I'm not funding this because you're dating Adrian Voss. I'm funding it because it's a good idea with real community impact. Clear? Clear? After she hung up, Lena allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of celebration. Then she pulled out her laptop and started refining her plan. If Diane Morrison was willing to take a chance on her, Lena was damn well going to make sure she didn't regret it.
Friday arrived too fast. Adrian picked her up at 7, and Lena noticed immediately that something was different. He was quieter than usual, tension evident in the set of his shoulders. "You okay?" she asked as the car pulled away from her building. "Fine. You're a terrible liar." His mouth twitched. "I thought I was supposed to be good at performing." "Not with me. That was the deal, remember? Honesty." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The work emergency Tuesday night. There's a situation with one of my properties. Someone's trying to undermine a development deal I've been working on for 2 years. Can you stop them?" "Probably, but it's going to be expensive and complicated, and I'm—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider. "Frustrated." "Frustrated seems like an understatement. I'm trying to be professional." "We're not in public yet. You can be human." He looked at her then, really looked, and Lena saw exhaustion beneath the polish. "I'm furious, actually. This deal would bring affordable housing to a neighborhood that desperately needs it. The person trying to block it just wants the land for luxury condos. So fight them."
I am. But fighting takes time, and people need housing now. His hands flexed. Sometimes I wonder if any of this actually matters. I build things, create opportunities, and there's always someone trying to tear it down for profit. The raw admission surprised her. She'd seen Adrian controlled and intense, amused and focused, but never quite this unguarded. "It matters," she said quietly. "Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard." "You sound very certain." "That's because I spent my entire childhood watching people try to make things better while other people profited from keeping things broken. The people who keep trying, they matter." Adrian held her gaze, something shifting in his expression. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make things feel less impossible." Before Lena could respond, the car stopped. They'd arrived at a brownstone in the West Village, warm light spilling from the windows. Through the glass, Lena could see people moving around inside. A small gathering, intimate like Adrian had said. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." The dinner was different from the formal events Lena had attended with Adrian before. Only 8 people total, gathered around a long table in a dining room that felt lived in and comfortable. Adrian's business partner, James, was a friendly man in his 60s who immediately pulled Lena into a conversation about her bookstore plans. His wife, Patricia, was warm and funny, telling embarrassing stories about Adrian's early business days that made him groan. "He showed up to our first investor meeting in a suit that was 2 sizes too big," Patricia said, laughing. "Said it was his father's. We almost didn't take him seriously. But then he opened his mouth and we realized he knew more about property development than men twice his age," James added. "Best investment we ever made." Lena watched Adrian's reaction, the genuine affection in his expression, the easy way he bantered with this couple. This was a side of him she hadn't seen, warmer and less guarded. "How long have you all known each other?" she asked. 15 years, James said. Adrian was 23, fresh out of business school, and absolutely convinced he could revolutionize urban housing. We thought he was insane. "I was insane," Adrian said. "Still am, according to most people." "But right," Patricia interjected. "Insane, but right. That's Adrian's specialty." The conversation flowed easily through dinner. Lena found herself genuinely enjoying it, the warmth of being included in something real instead of performing at a formal event. When dessert was served, Patricia turned to her with a knowing smile. "So, Lena, how did you two really meet?" Adrian had reached for his wine glass. His hand froze halfway there. "At a university gala," Lena said, sticking to their script. "We connected over—"
Oh, stop, Patricia waved her hand. I want the real story, not the press release version. Lena glanced at Adrian, who looked faintly panicked. She made a split-second decision. I kissed him, she said. The table went quiet. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Without warning, Lena continued, we'd never met. I was trying to escape my ex-boyfriend, and Adrian was standing there, and I just... She gestured helplessly. Kissed a complete stranger. And he kissed you back? Patricia's eyes sparkled. Eventually. James laughed, loud and delighted. Adrian, you dark horse. Here I thought you were finally being conventional, and instead you've got a story straight out of a movie. It was unconventional, Adrian said carefully, but effective. I'll say. Patricia looked between them, her expression thoughtful. And then what? You decided to actually date? We decided to get to know each other, Lena said, since we'd skipped the usual introduction. It wasn't quite the truth, but it wasn't quite a lie either. They had decided to get to know each other, just with different motivations than Patricia assumed. The rest of the evening passed in comfortable conversation. When they finally said their goodbyes, Patricia hugged Lena tightly. I like you, she whispered. You're good for him. Don't let him scare you away with all that intensity. In the car, Adrian was quiet again. But this silence felt different, thoughtful rather than tense. You told them the truth, he said finally. Part of it. Why? Because Patricia's not stupid. She would have seen through a rehearsed story. Lena turned to face him. And because they care about you, really care. They deserved something honest. Even though it makes our arrangement look... He paused. Less professional? Is that what we're calling it now? Professional? I don't know what else to call it. Lena didn't either. What had started as a clear transaction had blurred into something messier, harder to define. She spent time with him and liked it. She told him things she didn't tell other people. She almost kissed him in her hallway and regretted stopping. None of that fit the neat boxes they'd established. They're good people, she said instead. James and Patricia. They are. They took a chance on me when no one else would. Adrian's expression softened. Patricia's right, though. I probably would have scared you away if we'd met normally. What makes you think you haven't scared me? Because you're still here. The car stopped in front of her building. Lena knew she should get out, maintain the distance they'd established. Instead, she heard herself ask, Do you want to come up? Adrian's eyes sharpened. Lena, for coffee. Just coffee. I want to show you something. After a pause, he nodded. Okay. They climbed the 4 flights in silence. Inside her tiny apartment, Lena was suddenly aware of how small and shabby everything looked. The futon that served as her couch, the milk crates she used as shelves, the hot plate she cooked on because the stove didn't work. But Adrian didn't seem to notice. He stood in the center of the room, taking it in with the same focus he brought to everything. Coffee? Lena asked. Sure. She made it on her hot plate, using the French press Maya had given her for Christmas. While the water boiled, she pulled out a worn folder from under her bed. This is what I wanted to show you, she said, handing it to Adrian. He opened it carefully. Inside were sketches, floor plans, mood boards, her vision for the bookstore cafe. Not the sanitized business plan she'd sent to banks, but the real dream, hand-drawn and detailed and absolutely impractical. Adrian studied each page with complete attention. Lena poured coffee and waited, nervous in a way she hadn't been at any of the formal events. This is incredible, he said finally. It's unrealistic. The square footage I'd need, the location, the initial inventory, it would cost 3 times what I have. But it's what you actually want, not the scaled-down version you've been pitching. Yeah. Adrian set the folder down and looked at her. Why are you showing me this? Because you asked Patricia and James to take a chance on you 15 years ago. And they did, even though it was crazy. Lena wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I wanted someone to see the crazy version, the one I actually believe in. Diane Morrison's going to fund the practical version. I know, and I'm grateful, but the practical version isn't... She struggled for the words. It's not enough. It's a start, but it's not the thing I see in my head when I close my eyes. Adrian picked up the folder again, flipping through more slowly this time. What if you could do both? What do you mean? Start with Diane's funding, open the practical version, prove the concept works, then expand into this. He gestured to the sketches. Use the first location to fund the second. That would take years. Good things usually do. Lena sat down on her futon, processing. She'd been thinking of her dream as all or nothing, but Adrian was right. She could build in stages. Let each success fund the next phase. That's actually smart, she said. I have my moments. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The apartment felt even smaller with him in it, the intimacy of the space making the air feel charged. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Yes. Why did you really agree to this, the fake dating? And don't say because I'm honest or you were bored. I want the real reason. Adrian was quiet for a long time, staring at his coffee. When he spoke, his voice was low. About 3 months ago, I went to a charity gala, similar to the ones we've been attending. I spent 4 hours shaking hands and having meaningless conversations, and when I got home, I realized I couldn't remember a single person's name. Not because I have a bad memory, but because none of it mattered. None of them were real. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. Then you kissed me, and you were terrified and honest and completely yourself. No calculation, no angle, just desperation and hope that I'd play along. He turned to look at her. It was the most real moment I'd had in months, maybe years. So when you suggested we keep up the pretense, I said yes because I wanted more of that. More real moments, even if they're wrapped in a lie. The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Lena felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. This is getting complicated, she whispered. I know. We said we'd keep boundaries. We did. And we're not. Keeping them, I mean. Adrian's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. No, we're not. They sat there in Lena's tiny apartment, holding hands like teenagers, neither of them willing to acknowledge what was happening or brave enough to stop it. Finally, Adrian stood. I should go. Yeah. At the door, he turned back. Lena? Yeah? Thank you for showing me the real version of your dream. Thank you for not telling me it's impossible. Nothing you want is impossible, just difficult. He touched her face briefly, the gesture achingly gentle. See you soon? Yeah, soon. After he left, Lena sat in the dark, still feeling the ghost of his touch on her cheek. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. I lied earlier. I do know what to call this. I just don't know if you're ready to hear it. She stared at the message, her heart hammering. Before she could overthink it, she typed back, Try me. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, Adrian. Something real. Lena's breath caught. She should pull back, reestablish boundaries, remind them both that this was temporary. Instead, she wrote, Yeah, something real. Lena stared at her phone screen until the words blurred. Something real. 2 words that changed everything and nothing simultaneously. She fell asleep with her phone clutched in her hand, Adrian's message the last thing she saw before exhaustion pulled her under. Morning came with Maya pounding on her door at 8 a.m., coffee and bagels in hand. We need to talk, Maya announced, pushing past Lena into the apartment. Good morning to you too. Don't good morning me. I saw the pictures from last night. Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling to a gossip site. James Chen's birthday dinner. Very exclusive, very intimate. His wife is quoted saying you and Adrian are absolutely genuine together. Lena's stomach dropped. She said that to reporters? No, she said it to a friend who sold it to reporters. Welcome to dating someone famous. Maya set down the coffee and fixed Lena with a serious look. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because you're falling for him. I'm not, Lena. I've known you for 6 years. I've seen you date exactly 3 people, and you never looked at any of them the way you look at Adrian Voss in these photos. It's called acting. It's called feelings. Maya sat on the futon. And I'm not judging. He seems decent, and you deserve decent. But I need you to be honest with yourself about what's happening here. Lena sank down beside her, pulling her knees to her chest. It's getting complicated. How complicated? He told me last night this is becoming something real. Maya's eyebrows shot up. He said that? Via text after he left. And you said? That I agreed. Oh, honey. Maya wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You know this changes everything, right? You can't fake date someone you actually have feelings for. That's just dating with extra steps and built-in heartbreak. I know. So what are you going to do? Lena didn't have an answer. She spent the weekend trying to figure one out, but Monday arrived without clarity. Her meeting with Diane Morrison was at 2, which gave her exactly 5 hours to obsess over both her business plan and the fact that she hadn't heard from Adrian since Friday night. Not that she was counting, except she absolutely was. The Morrison Foundation offices were in Midtown, sleek and professional, without being intimidating. Diane met her in a conference room, the revised business plan spread across the table between them. "You've done good work here," Diane said, pointing to a section about community partnerships. "This is exactly the kind of thinking we look for. Sustainable, collaborative, focused on actual need rather than perceived opportunity." They spent 2 hours going through every detail. Diane was brutal with her questions, poking holes in Lena's projections and challenging her assumptions. But it was the kind of brutal that made the plan stronger, forced Lena to think harder about execution and contingencies. "All right," Diane said finally, leaning back in her chair. "I'm presenting this to the board next week. If they approve, and I think they will, we're looking at initial funding of $75,000. Lena's breath caught. $75,000. It wasn't enough for her dream version, but it was enough for the practical one. Enough to start. I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it wisely. Say you'll build something that matters." Diane's expression softened slightly. "And say you won't let whatever's happening with Adrian Voss distract you from this." "I won't." "Good. Because I meant what I said. This funding is about your work, not who you're dating. But I've been around long enough to recognize when someone's in deep with another person. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself." After the meeting, Lena walked back to her apartment in a daze. $75,000. A real chance. She pulled out her phone to text Maya, then hesitated. Her finger hovered over Adrian's name instead. She'd just decided against it when her phone rang. His number. "Hello? How did it go?" No preamble, just direct interest. "Good. Really good. She's presenting to the board next week." "That's excellent." She could hear the smile in his voice. "We should celebrate." "Adrian, it's not approved yet." "But it will be. Diane Morrison doesn't waste time on proposals she won't back." A pause. "Have dinner with me tonight. I work until 8. Then 9. I'll pick you up from the coffee shop." Lena should say no, should create distance, give herself space to think. Instead she said, "Okay." "Good. I'll see you at 9. Rita raised her eyebrows when Adrian walked into Grounds and Pages at exactly 9 p.m., but she didn't comment, just gave Lena a significant look as she clocked out. "Different from the car," Lena observed as they walked to where Adrian had parked. A sleek black sedan, expensive but not ostentatious. "I drove myself tonight. Thought we could use the privacy." He opened her door, waited until she was settled, then slid into the driver's seat. The car purred to life, smooth and quiet. "Where are we going?" Lena asked. "Somewhere we can actually talk." They drove north, leaving the city's dense core for quieter streets lined with trees. 20 minutes later, Adrian pulled up to a building Lena didn't recognize. Modern glass and steel, probably residential from the look of it. "What is this?" she asked. "My place." Lena's heart kicked up. "Adrian, I'm not trying to seduce you." He said it matter-of-factly, but there was tension around his eyes. "I just want to have a conversation without photographers, or reporters, or people listening. And my apartment is the only place I can guarantee that." It was reasonable, logical, and still felt like crossing a line. "Okay," she said. The building had a doorman who nodded at Adrian with familiar respect. They rode the elevator to the top floor in silence, and when the doors opened, they opened directly into Adrian's apartment. Lena stepped into a space that was nothing like she'd expected. She'd anticipated cold modern design, all glass and chrome and expensive art. Instead, she found warmth, dark wood floors, comfortable furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves packed with actual books. Large windows overlooked the city, and through an open door she could see a kitchen that looked actually used. "This is your apartment?" she said. "You sound surprised." "I thought it would be more," she gestured vaguely. "Intimidating? Sterile? Like a hotel?" "Yes." Adrian's mouth curved. "Most people assume that. The office is all glass and steel and calculated intimidation. Home is different. Home is—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider.
where I get to be human. Lena moved to the bookshelves, scanning titles. Fiction mixed with history, business theory beside poetry. On one shelf sat a framed photo of a woman who had Adrian's eyes. "Your mother?" she asked. "Yes. Taken about a year before she died. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. I was 26. Adrian moved to stand beside her, looking at the photo. She didn't get to see any of this. The success, the company, the money. She died still cleaning houses and worrying about making rent. The pain in his voice was carefully controlled but unmistakable. Lena touched his arm gently. "She'd be proud of you." "Would she? I'm not sure. She wanted me to be successful, but she also wanted me to be good. Those don't always align. Are you?" "Good? I mean?" Adrian turned to face her fully. "I try to be, but I work in a world that doesn't reward goodness. It rewards results. And sometimes getting results means making choices that aren't clean or simple." "Like what?" He was quiet for a moment, seeming to weigh how much to reveal. "Like the property deal I mentioned, the one being blocked. I could win it easily if I was willing to play dirty, spread rumors about my competitor, leak damaging information, pressure mutual associates. I'd get my affordable housing project, and I'd do it by destroying someone else's reputation. But you're not doing that." "No. I'm fighting through legal channels, which is slower and more expensive and might not work." He moved away, pacing to the windows. "My business partner thinks I'm being naive. Maybe I am. Maybe my mother's voice in my head is making me weak. It's not weakness to have a conscience. In my world, it often is." Lena joined him at the window, looking out at the glittering city. From up here it looked beautiful and orderly, the chaos of street level hidden by distance. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked. "Really?" Adrian turned to face her, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. "Because I need to tell you something, and I need you to understand I'm being completely honest." "Okay." "This," he gestured between them, "what we're doing, it's not fake anymore. Maybe it never was. And I know we said we'd keep boundaries, keep it professional, but I can't. I've tried. I'm failing spectacularly." Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. "Adrian, let me finish, please." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the strain in his expression. "You asked me once why I really agreed to this arrangement. I told you it was about wanting something real, and that was true. But it wasn't the whole truth." "What's the whole truth?" "The whole truth is that when you kissed me at that gala, it was the first time in years I felt anything beyond cold calculation. You were desperate and brave and absolutely yourself, and I wanted more of that. More of you." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "And every time we've been together since, I've wanted it more. The way you challenge me, the way you see through the performance, the way you make me feel like a person instead of a transaction." Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the warmth of his hand and the intensity of his gaze. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you feel it too, or say you don't. Just be honest." The moment stretched between them, weighted with possibility. Lena knew that her answer would change everything, would turn this careful arrangement into something neither of them could control. "I feel it too," she said finally, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because you're Adrian Voss. You own buildings and companies and half the city, and I'm nobody. I serve coffee and dream about opening a bookstore. We don't make sense. We don't have to make sense to everyone else, just to us. What happens when this ends badly? Because it probably will. These things usually do. Maybe." Adrian's other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. "Or maybe we're both so terrified of being hurt that we're sabotaging something before it has a chance to start. That's very psychologically aware of you. I spent 3 years in therapy learning to identify my defense mechanisms. This is one of them." Despite everything, Lena laughed. "You're in therapy?" "Was. Past tense. Though my therapist would probably say I should go back given my current decision to pursue a relationship with someone I met through mutual deception." "Your therapist sounds smart." "She was. She'd also probably tell you to run before I hurt you. Are you trying to talk me out of this?" "I'm trying to be honest about what I am, what being with me actually means." Adrian's expression grew serious. "I work 80-hour weeks.
I'm possessive and controlling and terrible at expressing emotions. I have enemies who would love to hurt me through anyone I care about. And I'm so damaged that sometimes I don't know how to be normal with people. That's quite a sales pitch. It's reality. If we do this, if we turn this into something real, you need to know what you're signing up for. Lena studied his face, seeing the vulnerability beneath the controlled exterior. He was giving her an out, she realized, making sure she understood the cost before she paid it. Okay, she said, my turn. I'm stubborn and independent to a fault. I don't like being told what to do, and I'll fight you on everything if I think you're being controlling. I have trust issues from my ex that I'm still working through. I'm broke, I'm ambitious in ways that probably won't make me rich, and I'm terrified of being someone's charity project. I'm not finished. I'm also falling for you in ways that scare me because I don't fall easily, and I definitely don't fall for men who could destroy me financially and emotionally without even trying. But I'm doing it anyway, apparently, because I'm either brave or stupid, and I haven't figured out which yet. Adrian's expression had shifted during her speech, something like wonder replacing the wariness. So what do we do? He asked quietly. I don't know. Try? See what happens when we stop pretending it's fake? That's simple? Nothing about this is simple, but maybe we stop fighting it and just see where it goes. Adrian pulled her closer until there was barely any space between them. I should warn you, once I stop pretending, I don't do anything halfway. Is that supposed to scare me? It's supposed to prepare you. Then he kissed her, and it was nothing like that first desperate kiss at the gala. This was slow and thorough and devastating, his hands framing her face like she was something precious. Lena's arms came up around his neck, and she kissed him back with all the feelings she'd been trying to suppress for weeks. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. We're doing this, he said. Not a question. Yeah, we're doing this. No more fake dating. No more fake dating. Just to be clear, does this mean I can fire my PR person? Because she's been crafting statements about our relationship, and it's getting expensive. Lena laughed, the sound breathless and happy. You don't actually have a PR person managing our relationship. I absolutely do. She's very thorough, keeps track of every appearance, every photo, cross-references them with trending topics to maximize positive coverage. That's insane. That's my life. Welcome to it. He kissed her again, softer this time, almost playful. Lena felt something in her chest crack open. A hopefulness she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. They eventually migrated to his couch, talking until nearly 2 a.m. about everything and nothing. Adrian told her about growing up poor, about his father who died when he was 12, about building his company from nothing and learning that money didn't actually solve most problems. Lena talked about her small town, about watching it die slowly as factories closed and people left, about Mrs. Chen's bookstore, and the moment she'd decided she wanted to create spaces like that. You know what's strange, Adrian said at some point, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. I've had longer relationships that revealed less. We've known each other 5 weeks, and I feel like you understand me better than people I've known for years. Maybe because we started with honesty. We didn't have to perform for each other. Except we did. That was the whole point. But we were bad at it. We kept accidentally being real. Adrian's laugh rumbled through his chest. Accidentally real. That might be the most accurate description of us I've heard. Around 2:30, Lena's phone buzzed, Maya, asking if she was alive. I should go home, Lena said reluctantly, or you could stay. Adrian, not like that. I have a guest room. You could sleep there, and I'll take you home in the morning. He pulled back to look at her. I just don't want you taking the subway at 3 a.m. It was practical, reasonable, and also an excuse to stay longer. Okay, she said. The guest room was comfortable and impersonal, like a nice hotel. Adrian lent her a t-shirt to sleep in, and when she emerged from the bathroom, he was waiting in the hallway. Thank you, she said, for tonight, for being honest. Thank you for not running when I was. He kissed her goodnight, gentle and lingering, then forced himself to step back before it could deepen into something that would make sleeping in separate rooms impossible. Lena lay in the unfamiliar bed, her mind racing. This was real now. No more pretending, no more clear boundaries. Just two damaged people trying to figure out if they could build something together.
She fell asleep surprisingly easily, feeling safer than she had in months. Morning came with the smell of coffee. Lena found Adrian in the kitchen, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt that made him look younger and more approachable than his usual suits. "Morning," he said, handing her a mug. "How do you take it?" Black. Years of working in coffee shops killed my ability to drink it any other way. They sat at his kitchen island, comfortable in the morning quiet. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making the city below look almost clean. "What happens now?" Lena asked. "Now I take you home. You go to work, I go to work. We text too much and make plans for dinner." "I meant with—" She gestured between them. "Us. Do we tell people it's real now?" Adrian considered this. "Does it matter? We're already being seen together. Whether it's fake or real, the public perception is the same." "I guess. It just feels different." "It is different, but we don't owe anyone an explanation." He covered her hand with his. "We figure this out at our own pace. No performance, no pressure." "That sounds nice." "Doesn't it?" His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. "Damn." "What?" "The property deal. There's a hearing this morning about the development permits. I need to be there." "Then go. I can take the subway home." "Are you sure?" "Adrian, I've been taking the subway for years. I'll survive." He kissed her quickly, already moving toward his bedroom to change. "I'll call you later?" "Yeah, go fight your battle." 20 minutes later, Lena was on the subway heading downtown, wearing yesterday's clothes and probably looking like she'd spent the night somewhere. She didn't care. She felt lighter than she had in weeks. At her apartment, Maya was waiting on the stoop with coffee and an expression that promised interrogation. "Walk of shame at 9 a.m., Maya observed. "Not quite. We just talked." "For 10 hours? It was a long conversation. Lena unlocked the building door and, "Come on, I'll tell you everything." Upstairs, she filled Maya in on the whole night, the conversation, the kiss, the decision to make this real. Maya listened with growing concern. "I'm happy for you," she said finally. "But I'm also worried. This guy is intense, Lena, and powerful. If it goes bad—" "I know, trust me. I've thought through all the ways this could explode. And you're doing it anyway?" "I'm doing it anyway." Maya hugged her. "Okay, then I'm here for it. But the second he hurts you, I'm keying his car. He probably has multiple cars. Then I'll key all of them." Lena spent the rest of the day at work, trying to focus, but mostly thinking about Adrian. He texted around 2. "Adrian. Hearing went better than expected. Still fighting, but we made progress." Lena. "That's good. How are you holding up?" Adrian. "Tired, frustrated. Wishing I was still having coffee with you this morning instead of arguing with bureaucrats." Lena. "Bureaucrats are definitely worse company." Adrian. "Considerably. Dinner tomorrow? Somewhere quiet?" Lena. "Yes." The next few weeks fell into a pattern. They saw each other 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes at restaurants, sometimes at his apartment, once at hers when he brought takeout and helped her fix her broken stove. He came to Grounds and Pages during her shifts, sitting in the corner with his laptop and working while she pulled espressos. She met him after late meetings, and they'd walk through the city talking until the streets emptied. It felt real and normal and terrifying in the best way. The press noticed the shift. Articles speculated about how serious they were, whether Adrian would propose, what it meant that Lena Hart had tamed the city's most eligible bachelor. Lena tried to ignore it, but the attention was constant and invasive. Then Diane Morrison called with news. The board had approved the funding. $75,000, with the possibility of more if the first location proved successful, Lena cried. Actually cried, standing in her apartment with the phone pressed to her ear, overwhelmed by the reality of it. "You earned this," Diane said firmly. "Now don't waste it." Adrian took her to dinner that night to celebrate. Not somewhere fancy, a quiet Italian place in Brooklyn where the owner knew him and didn't care about his money. "To new beginnings," Adrian said, raising his wine glass. Lena clinked hers against it. "And to people who take chances on crazy ideas." "Your idea isn't crazy, it's ambitious. There's a difference." They were halfway through dinner when Lena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. "You should check that," Adrian said, frowning. She did. Her stomach dropped. It was a link to a gossip site,
sent from a blocked number. The headline read, "The Truth About Lena Hart's Relationship with Adrian Voss, an Insider Speaks." With shaking hands, Lena clicked it. The article was brutal. It claimed their relationship had started as a publicity stunt, that Lena had targeted Adrian deliberately to advance her business prospects, that she was using him for money and connections. It quoted anonymous sources who allegedly knew Lena from college, saying she'd always been ambitious and calculating. Worst of all, it included details that felt uncomfortably close to the truth. The timing of their first public appearance, the fact that Diane Morrison's funding had come after Lena started dating Adrian, even speculation about how convenient it was that her ex-boyfriend had stopped bothering her once Adrian entered the picture. "Lena?" Adrian's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What is it?" She couldn't speak, just handed him the phone. She watched his expression darken as he read, saw his jaw clench, saw fury flash in his eyes. "This is garbage," he said flatly. "None of this is true. Isn't it, though?" Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "We did start as a publicity stunt. I am dating you. Diane did fund my project after we got together. On paper, it looks exactly like what they're saying." "On paper, maybe. But we know the truth." "Do we? Because right now I can't remember where the performance ended and the real thing started." Lena stood abruptly, needing to move. "What if they're right? What if I am just using you? You're not—" "How do you know? How do I know? Maybe I convince myself I have feelings for you because it's convenient, because dating you opens doors I couldn't open myself." Adrian stood too, his expression intense. "Lena, listen to me. This is what they do. They take truth and twist it into something ugly. But what we have isn't ugly. It's real." "Is it? Or is it just convenient for both of us?" "You're letting them get in your head." "Maybe they should be in my head. Maybe I should be questioning this." They stared at each other across the table, the celebratory dinner forgotten. Lena felt like she was falling, like the ground had disappeared and she was grasping at nothing. "I need to go," she said. "Lena, please, I just need to think." She left before he could stop her, walking blindly through Brooklyn streets until her feet ached. Her phone buzzed constantly. Maya, Rita, unknown numbers that were probably reporters. She ignored all of them. By the time she reached her apartment, it was past midnight. She climbed the stairs slowly, exhausted and emotionally wrung out. Someone was waiting at her door. Damien. "Hello, Lena," he said, his smile sharp and cold. "I think we need to talk."